Podemos começar? So I think we can start. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for this talk with Professor Jarna Joshi. This will be another session from Docomomo of Macau. I'd like to thank Fundação Rui Cunha and Docomomo, Rui, Sergio, and Thiago from Singapore. This will be one more session included in the cycle that Docomomo will try to follow in the next more regularly about modernism, postmodern, the modernist architecture, not only in Macau but around Asia. In this case, we brought Professor Jarna to show us a little bit or talk about the modernist architecture in Nepal eventually.
I forgot the book.
Let me just introduce you to Professor Jarna. She's an architect holding a degree from Tsinghua University in Beijing with expertise in historic conservation from the University of Pennsylvania and cultural landscapes from Jean Monnet University in France. She recently earned a PhD in management in the field of tourism from Victoria University of Wellington with her dissertation Landscape Aesthetics, Tourism and Change, Case Studies in Nepal, where she explores how residents and tourists perceive evolving landscapes in Gangtok, Bandipur, and Soraha. With over 2 decades of experience in architecture, conservation, cultural landscapes, tourism, and academia, Jarna has worked across Nepal, China, Hong Kong, United States, Vietnam, Greece, and New Zealand. Her work in restoration and adaptive reuse projects throughout Nepal emphasizes local materials, traditional craftsmanship, and sustainable upcycling. She actively collaborates with national and international experts on architecture and heritage conservation initiatives, while contributing as a visiting faculty member, specializing in urban conservation, vernacular architecture, settlements, and cultural landscapes. Thank you, Professor. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Docomomo and Foundation for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here, and this is my first visit to Macau. And I'm really, really sorry. I brought some books and I completely forgot about it. It's on the table, and at the last minute I was looking at directions to get here on the map, and that confused me, and I'll get it to you later or tomorrow, Sergio, if that's okay. I'm so sorry about that. Again, thank you so much for inviting me, and today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the early modern architecture in Nepal. I'll start with how it came about, and then my organization, Kathmandu Institute, we started documenting these buildings. And then we had an exhibition last year, and also the book that I mentioned. I'll talk about that. And in that process, I'll show you some examples of the early modern architecture buildings, as well as the documentation challenges that we had. So just a general idea, like I don't know how many of you have been to Nepal, but we are in a very unique position between India and China, and the country is a long, and the interesting thing is that north-south we are about less than 200 kilometers, but the elevation rises from below 100 to, as you all know, 8848 Mount Everest. So because of that, we have a great variation of languages, ethnic groups, communities, as well as architecture. I'm not going to go into that today, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on Nepal if you haven't been there. And the other interesting fact is also we've never been colonized, and that has also played into the modern architecture as well, and how our buildings have developed as well, I think. So this is probably the impression of Kathmandu or Nepal most people who have visited would have. Our buildings before the modern era was before in the 1800s, early 1800s was mostly bricks and timber, and mostly on mud mortar. And this is a house. What did I do? Okay. This is a residential building, and this is a temple, and this is a palace building in pattern. So as you can see, it is not much difference in terms of the materials used from residential to temples and palaces. The only difference is the amount of carvings and detailed work, and also the quality of craftsmanship. So so this is the basic structure, basic form of architecture. Then was the materials brick and timber, mud mortar, and then because we have very distinct weather patterns and monsoon for 2 month long monsoon, heavy rains during that. So the roofs are very what we have like large wide overhangs, and which is topped with small ceramic tiles that we call chingati, which is placed on mud base, and that was a distinct character. And this type of temple with this tiered temple style, we like to call it tiered temple, not pagoda, because these are not exactly floors as such. These are just for the structure of the building, of the temples. There's no floor as such, so we prefer to call it tiered temple, which is a little bit different from pagoda, which is actually floors. So, and these are also like very human scale buildings. And late 1800s, they started changing a little bit. It was during that period we had like 104 years of autocratic rules, Rana rule, and they started visiting Europe and then coming back. This white stucco, this is a lime plaster, which is not readily available in Kathmandu, started coming into use, and this kind of change, up to 1800s, early 1800s, we had like very earthy tones of brown and the bricks and timber, but then this must have been quite shocking at being built at the time, because these were huge, larger than life kind of structures, but these were mostly built outside of the traditional core, except this one. This is actually, this building is actually at Kathmandu Darbar Square, Kathmandu Palace Square. So, and then then that large overhangs that I mentioned earlier, which is very typical of the newer buildings of Kathmandu Valley, that gets lost as well. So we have flat roofs. So that distinction is lost. So this is, but then again, like I said, this is during the autocratic rule of the Rana. So it was mostly the rulers and those close to them who could build houses in this style anyway. So so then in the early 1900s, some kind of like a new style buildings started coming up. Again, this was still during the Rana period, autocratic Rana period. So the styles were, following some European influence, but still built by the Nepalese workers, and of course. So it was mud, bricks and mud and timber openings, timber windows and doors. But then this white lime plaster was the new thing coming in, and then a few institutional buildings also started coming up at this time. For example, this is a school which with a library, and this was again for the rulers and their the ministers, and those closed for them. They could only go to formal schools. The ordinary people couldn't go to school. So that started a little bit of change, but it was still slow and very few and far between. Then one turning point, I think, was the 1934 earthquake. This was the earthquake that we used to refer to before the recent 2015 earthquake. So this was a big earthquake, 1934. This is in the border of Nepal and India, and so we have major earthquakes almost like 80 to 100 years, something like that. So the big one before 2015 was the 1934 earthquake, and that was also brought in some changes, distinct changes. For example, this is the main road leading up to Kathmandu Palace Square, the traditional square. This is the new road gate. This street was built with facade, similar facade, very European style facade. Again, the white stucco facade, and a wide road with like parks and bank buildings and malls coming in. So this earthquake started like opening up a little bit more like institutional and public buildings as well. So that's just giving you a background to the architectural development before the modern buildings came up, and I just wanted to like briefly talk about this, how this project of documentation came about. We are a group of architects and planners, and we initially we came together like informally to talk on architectural planning and related things. But then again, we started organizing talks and such, and then people started asking me like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing? This was during the COVID time. We used to do it webinars and all that, and we just started calling ourselves Kathmandu Institute, and that name kind of stuck. So when we wanted to do the book and the exhibition, we had to formally register, so that name kind of stuck. So it's not a formal institute as such, but it's a group of architects and planners. We would like to extend beyond architects and planners as well. So we talk about contemporary built form, and so that's because we believe that knowledge produced locally is the most powerful and effective knowledge as well. So this is the picture of this is the book that I mentioned. I'm so sorry I forgot. And we had the exhibition at Taragaon Museum, which again I will talk about it. It's one of the early modern architecture buildings, and we had a series of talks during the 1 month. We had the exhibition, and a few of the architects were still surviving from the modern era period. We invited them for talks as well, so it was quite successful, and it has been very motivating for us to continue this work. So this year we started with monthly events. 2025 we started with monthly events, and we are trying to build it up into a conference at the end of the year, 20 November or early December, and also a book on all the discussions that we do every month. So going back to the why we're doing it, it was because the introduction that I did about the Malla, the Newar architecture, the architecture of the Kathmandu Valley. There's been a lot of research, quite a bit of research done on it, but there's almost nothing on the early modern architecture or contemporary architecture. We haven't even gone to the contemporary architecture yet, but this early period of we're looking at from 1945 to 1985. This is where the political changes are. Like I said at the beginning, we've never been colonized, but India was, and that has had quite an impact on Nepal as well. So this is around that period, like the around 1950s, and that was also when the Rana rule that I talked about, that ended as well. So that this kind of brought in a kind of a new modernization period as such, because we had King Mahendra at that time, and in India it was Nehru coming in with bringing in Le Corbusier to design towns as well. So that had kind of an influence in Nepal as well. And our king at the time, King Mahendra, was also quite an ambitious guy. So he wanted to, present Nepal as a new country, a modern country as well. This before that, during the Rana rule, Nepal was closed off, so no one could come in. So the 1950s was when Nepal started opening up as well. So there was when the changes started happening. But like I said, there was not a good understanding of the spirit of architecture in Nepal, and so there's no archiving or care of most of the architects. They had either passed away, their practices had closed, or they did not even have the drawings there. So we had to dig deep and find sources like photographs or whatever we could find, and from private collections as well as from international archives. That's the one building. We had one building designed by Louis Kahn, and that was the only complete documentation that University of Pennsylvania had. And because I studied there, when I had seen the amount of documentation that I had. When we started doing this project, I reached out, and they were wonderful. They scanned and sent me everything they had. So and since we produced the book, we've also got a lot of emails, saying that they have more materials. So that's definitely going to be continued in a new book. And so the format is also different: pencil sketches, ink on paper, blueprints, which really don't hold very are not very good to archive, and slides and photographs. And the most important thing that is because this is not much understanding of this time of architecture, is that we don't have any laws for the protection. In Nepal, we have this, what you call it, Ancient Monument Protection Act, which was actually from 1951, which has, of course, been amended many times since then. We define heritage as something that is more than 100 years old. So, by the time these buildings get to 100, they will be lost. So we are trying to, one of the objectives of doing this is, trying to influence policymakers as well, like make them understand these buildings also need to be protected. For some of the buildings, we felt the need that it needed to be documented again. So we use students and other volunteers, young architects, to redo the drawings as well. And for some, we just use whatever we could, photographs. For photographs, there's a wonderful collection by U.S. Peace Corps volunteers. They came in the 60s, and they were probably the first ones who were traveling all over Nepal with cameras. And they also had access to aircraft, so they were taking like aerial pictures as well. So that has been, and they also got together during the earthquake 2015 and they put the collection together. So they also have been a wonderful help, giving us whatever, all their original prints, copies of the original prints. So that was also one of the very good sources of for our exhibition on the book. So a little bit about what we actually like were documenting is like I said, it's 50s end of Ghana rule and the end of colonization in South Asia, and then in Kathmandu particularly, the city expanded beyond the historic cores was and then there was planned the planning for like industrial for industries, for education and administrative core and enclaves as such. So the industries were like in north in Kathmandu, in Balaju area, in the south in Patan, the Lagan Kale, and then for the education, there's one in Kirtipur, the one in east and west, and the administration was in the center. So it was kind of like just try to blow it up. I don't think it's very clear, but it's in the outside of the core area, but it was trying to like expand to. If you know Kathmandu Valley, I probably should have cited. The Kathmandu Valley has 3 cities, major cities: Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, and Lalitpur, and that this expansion was in bringing all these 3 cities together as well. So a few of the early buildings, I would like to start with the Ved Prasad Lohani's building. This is an educational building. It's a library as well as the library and other administrative building of Trichanda campus. And Ved Prasad Lohani was probably the first person to design an RCT building in Nepal. And we heard stories that he did a very wide span building and cantilevers were like very wide, and no one was willing to take down the formwork after like the 3-4 weeks it needed, and he said like he'd take the risk. He was the first one who started to taking down the formwork. So this collection is actually from his son has this collection, all his, but it's all rolled up, and he doesn't really know what to do with it. So, and he's very careful as well. The son that he started giving us like little by little. Like he took out one, we kept asking, do you have this one? Do you have this? And then slowly he started giving out his drawings. And when he saw that what we were doing, I guess at the beginning he didn't really know what we wanted to do, but when he saw what we were doing, we were taking care, we like making copies, and then we invited him for a talk. Then we did this exhibition. Now he understands the importance of the building, so he's willing to share now. But it was not easy getting the material from him as well. So this he was the first one to also start the Art Deco style of architecture in Nepal as well. So this is the other reason that why we felt that it was as important to document and protect this building is because of the recent expansion of the city, and it's these buildings are being lost in the new building, the buildings coming up, and unfortunately, as we were documenting, this one building actually was demolished. And it took us more than a year to put this together because we started during the COVID time, and like I said, we are a group of volunteers, so it took a lot of time. But and then we lost the building as well. So this is still used as a part of the campus, but it's not in a very good condition as such. This was a lovely cinema hall right in the middle of Kathmandu, near the new road that I showed you earlier. I've been here many times as a kid to watch movies. Again, Art Deco style of buildings, and these are his drawings. For this one, Go back. For this one, we felt it was important to redraft, so we traced and did new AutoCAD drawings. For this one, we because this drawings was so beautiful that we kept we showed the original ones. We haven't digitized this, and it's really beautiful. It's even has like showing now and next change written with all the really good hand drawings, beautiful drawings. This building has been demolished, and a very ugly new shopping center in place of it. It's not even a shopping center. And then he also designed a lot of residentials around Kathmandu, and it all has this curves, soft curves, and definitely Art Deco buildings, and lovely drawings as well. So I'm just showing a little bit. The other iconic building, I guess, is the new Royal Palace, which is now the museum after we ended monarchy in Nepal. It's a museum now. And this was designed by Benjamin Polk, an American architect, and that's he still used the same bricks and timber, but he kind of like gave it a little bit of a modern touch with the towers, which was inspired by the palaces and the temples, but again it was quite simple actually inside. This was during the construction. He was invited to at this time actually. Also, the other thing was that most of the newer buildings, except for the Nepali architects, the foreign architects were invited by the American embassy, the Germans, Swiss government as well, to do development projects. And Benjamin Polk did a series of buildings like the Royal Palace, as well as the Polytech and the schools that I'll show you a little bit as well. So he worked. There was a firm, Polk and Chatterjee in Calcutta. Benoy Chatterjee was a structural engineer, and Benjamin Polk, an architect. They had a firm in Calcutta, which has now since closed. So we couldn't. We tried to see if they had like the original materials there, but they've closed and kind of lost. So we didn't find anything there. We don't have any drawings of this. We're trying to work with the Ministry of Culture, which owns the building now, to do drawings of this. So, the other buildings that he did, the campuses and this, the next one, the laboratory school. This was introduced a lot of like modern building technologies as well for Nepal, which was stylistically, it kind of like blended in with the landscape, and most of them were low-rise buildings. This is in Sanotimi, which was very agricultural at that time, so no tall structures, very linear form, and then the precast RCC portals with beams coming out, and this kind of windows, like independent kind of windows along the facade. That was kind of interesting as well. And these the RCC portals, they were cast on site as well. So that was something we had. We recently had invited. He was a technician who worked with Polk as well as called Pushra, and he was saying that like I said, this was new, not just new materials, but new technology as well, because before this we just built on as load-bearing bricks on mortar. So all this technology coming in, new types of bricks were also introduced. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But so this was something completely new for them. But I'm like even now, it's amazing that they were able to do this kind of work, because even now we don't really use precast, but they were already experimenting with this at that time. So this is the laboratory school. This was an experiment not just on the building, but also in the education system as well. This is again funded by the U.S. government. Square buildings along linearly with a large open space for the connecting and then for different activities as well. So still very used the building, and this is another building at the Department of Education in Tribhuvan University. This is a really interesting, the roof structure. But the sad thing is like they put a roof over it, so you cannot really see this folded slabs anymore. Well, you can see it, but not, it's not doing its thing anymore. So which is kind of sad, because I think the problem is that we don't really we are not very good with maintenance. So they're probably like having some problems with leakage as such. So they put a roof over it. So which is very sad. I think you can see this here. That's the roof over it. So it's supposed to be like a folded slab thing. It's just kind of lost its impact. The other prominent, he's actually not an architect but an engineer, but he's also an artist as well, and he's still alive and in his 90s, and we invited him for talks as well, and he's very still active, not as an engineer but as an artist. So he still does paintings and he remembers everything, and it was wonderful to hear him during this during the exhibition. And I think this is, oh sorry, I don't know what happened. It's one of his iconic buildings. Again, he used a lot of RCC frame structure, and this is like with large overhangs again on 4 pylons, and he kind of like did a design with the circle thing. So this is known as a pangre card, which means a wheelhouse. And then there's another one of his house which has like a leg, so it's called a kutte house, which is a legged house. The other wonderful building is the National Nepal Academy, which has like small and big. It was auditorium and smaller structures as well, and the as a style is this is functional, but it really works well with as an overall building structure as well. This big and small halls and large spaces on 2 levels. I heard from another literature expert, was like they were having a big conference when we had that earthquake in 2015, and he said this building was so stable, and because there was so much space outside, the corridor is so wide that there was not a single injury or something. It was very easy for everyone to come out, even when when they had such a big gathering. So this has obviously survived the earthquake very well. And this is one of his interesting buildings. I find this very interesting. Is and probably one of the kind of like a tall building, first tall buildings, is like on the tall, linear, slender, tall structure on this square base, and even this base is like on 3 levels. Like the lower part is kind of solid, then it like recesses in, and then you have this plasters facade coming out, then the slender structure with a corner window. So it's a Ministry of Finance buildings. So very interesting structure. As well as he also did some industrial buildings, and this building has a very personal connection with me because my mother worked here for almost all of her life. Like when this used to be a technical school when it started. My mother joined it, and she was there until she this was again very interesting as such because this was for a mechanical workshop. So large span with the skylights, circular skylights, and all the gutters are in the columns. So it's really well planned. And the other, he also did this one of the first modern luxury hotels, the Solti hotels. It's changed a lot since then, but almost unrecognizable now. But this is again in probably like an international style as such. Very pragmatic building with rooms on two sides of the corridor. All the services on the basement, and the front is the front of the house, and then you have the extending rooms. Like I said, this is known as the Kutte Ghar, which is house on legs, and this is still standing. So luckily, this one is gone. These two are still there, I think. The wheel house is also still surviving. He also did some planning of Tikapur, and it was very practical planning as well. Along the highway is where all the administration and commercial centers are, and then you have these blocks which were supposed to be very independent and self-sufficient as well. You can still, if you look at it in the Google Maps now, you can still see the basic structure of it, but the larger parcels has been divided up, but otherwise you can still see the basic structure of the town plan. Mr. Gangadhar Bhatta was the first architect, trained architect as such, and he worked for the ministry, so he has he hasn't designed that many buildings as such, but what he's done is quite impressive as well. This is the city hall. The gate is, I like the gate very much, and it's very functional, still in use. At one time there was some talk of demolishing this, but then architects got together, and it has been repurposed since then. So this is saved because we pushed the fact that he's the first architect. So this kind of we could save this building, and it hasn't changed that much actually. So it's quite good. Kalpusha, an Austrian architect, he came with the he was working as a consultant for UNDP, actually to do the planning of Kathmandu Valley in 1969, and he also worked with the inventory of the monuments of Kathmandu Valley, early 70s, late 60s, and he also designed quite a few of the iconic buildings. This is in the Tribhuvan University in Kirtipur. This is called this Center for Economic Development, administration, again funded by the U.S. government. He took inspiration from the mountains, the landscape. He also lost all his drawings. The architect, Sankarnath Limal, I showed quite a few of his buildings. He also lost all his drawings, but the good thing is he had slides of all his works. So we just went through all his slides, made copies of, scanned all his slides, and then we did some, we digitized some of the drawings, but for most we just have the archived as the slides and the scans of the slides. Kalpusha, he has also lost all his drawings. He had very small images in his book. These are from that, and not the drawings, but images from his book survived. This is a very iconic building as well, but we thought this was important enough to document it, so we got students and young architects to do the documentation, measure drawings, and they also did pretty good 3D modeling of it as well. It's a very beautiful brick structure, no damage at all from the earthquake, but it's not used properly, so it needs some major restoration work. Again, this is like masonry load bearing buildings, but the slabs are all precast. And this is one thing that I mentioned earlier, that the type of brick also changed. And this is brick on cement mortar. So this brick doesn't. The earlier bricks had like a kind of an indent, so that you could was good to use mud mortars. But these new bricks for this building is like doesn't have that indent, so it's not very good to use it with mud mortar. So a lot of, if you visit this building, you'll see that it must have used huge amount of bricks, and this so it's because it's precast, it's very modular structure, 1 meter, 3 meters, so it's and they built some like light wells and again precast stairs, so very beautiful buildings. And this was the precast floor slabs. This was designed by a polystructural engineer as well. So he came and then they had to train the local builders, local masons, and as well as the structural engineers at the time to how to work with it. It's very interesting that they even built pulleys, and they didn't have crane at the time, but it was like homemade kind of pulleys and all that. I should have included those pictures as well. So that's quite very interesting. And this is Taragaon Next. It's called Taragaon Next. It was built as a hotel for long stay foreigners again this is where we had our exhibition. It was a really lovely place to have the exhibition. Again, Kalpusha's, like I said, all his works are lost in a fire or something. So these drawings were done by students, but they did it in the early 90s. So that was the only documentation we had. But now they are based on that. This was about to be demolished, but someone found an inscription that said the Queen at the time had inaugurated the building. So that kind of worked to save this building. So this building, there's a huge hotel next to it, and Hyatt. And so when Hyatt was built, they used this as an office, and then they were about to demolish it, but it's been saved now. But now Hyatt has an exhibition here. So now it's getting really, really popular as well, and so this is saved. But they've made some changes to it. It used to be timber. The circular windows was timber framed, now it's metal framed, and there's this very interesting double vault, brick on brick, and with a slab in between. So very interesting structure. And again, this is a series of buildings and courtyards, buildings around the courtyard, very low rise, 1 or 2 story, mostly 1 story, and buildings around courtyards, which again he says inspired by the historic course. We also we also invited Kalpusha to give a talk on his work, and it was, of course, he couldn't come over, but it was he joined into it was what do you call it, a webinar kind of thing, and he was so happy that you say that he didn't expect like Nepalese people still remembered him, but we do. His buildings are still there. We teach a lot of them. He also did a few residences. Again, same tones, brick and timber. And this is a house that he actually stayed in. It was about to be built. Story, according to the story, the foundation was already laid, but with a different design. He used that to redesign the building, and he stayed here. This house is the house that I said that was demolished while we were doing this project. Like, it was when we started documenting, it was there. Then along the way we heard that it's been demolished. So yeah, another guy is Robert Weise. He's a Swiss architect, and he came with a Swiss project, but then he actually stayed back and opened a practice. So the early Nepali architects who went abroad to study and came back, they all worked for him. So he designed this the first 5-star Hotel de la Annapurna, which is again has been demolished very recently. It was quite an interesting building. Again, low rise, taking inspiration from the traditional buildings, but in a modern way with all the modern facilities. And the other iconic building that he designed, which is actually he did the master plan for the Tribhuvan University, the first university in Nepal, and also designed some of the buildings there. The Central Library is one of his earlier buildings, and it was like in 3 parts, flanked by in the center 2 stories with all these the lattice work, which brings in like filtered light inside, which is very good environment for the books as well as the library. And this is also one of his very interesting projects. Is the first SOS Children's Village, which again uses the very vernacular style buildings, timber roof structure, and very low rise for very so it's very it gives a very friendly environment for the children. And you probably know that in SOS villages, the children don't stay; they stay in like hostels or something like that. It's a small family houses with a couple, usually a couple, being raised. Or they stay in the same house with the same kind of a parents. So it's very good. This still hasn't changed. This is one of the good examples. So I'd like to end with Louis Khan. It's only building in Nepal. I think how there's many stories how he got involved. Again, he was invited by the U.S. government, of course, but how there's a few stories about how he got involved in it is because he was doing major projects in Bangladesh and in India as well. And I think this was like a side project. But I was amazed to see this model at University of Pennsylvania Library. That's where I got when I did my postgraduate, and I was visiting just the library one day, and when I saw this, I thought like, this is familiar. I did not expect anything like from Nepal to be in a library in UPenn, of course. So so they were, and the librarians, they were quite interested that someone from Nepal came to see their exhibit as well, and this is the building that got built, but he actually designed this whole complex. In that if you remember the first it's the administrative, the central zone, and the building that got built is here. Only half of it got built. It was supposed to be like a 2 buildings shaped in H-shaped building, but only one part got in. And what we see today, this as a front, is actually not supposed to be the front part. So the original building, like I said, it was two buildings joined by this another block of buildings, which also acted as a bridge, and then this was like 4 distinct structures, towers joined in by all the functions. Services are in the center and at the ends as well. This was, it was supposed to be a flying visit, but as you can see that he did go around a little bit. So, this building again has changed. This what he designed as probably like a open courtyard in the sky on top. Well, it was designed for the as a family planning building, but then again now the Ministry of Health is here. They saw this thing, they didn't quite understand and didn't quite know what to do with it, so they put a roof over it, and then windows, put a window, so the essence kind of gets lost. But and as we have the architects in Nepal, we have this society for Nepalese architects. We actually went to court for this, fought for this building. Again, like I said, it was not 100 years old, so it didn't really qualify as a heritage. We couldn't really explain like how big Louis Khan was. The lawyers didn't understand. So I was the one and only time I guess I picketed. We were outside this building with the placards for the minister, and but I heard we actually won the case, but then again in Nepal, like it takes another effort to get it implemented, the court decision, so the roof is still there. So I guess we can still go back and fight for it, but anyway, this is gone. Like I said, this is the only building that has very good documentation. So, and University of Pennsylvania was kind enough. I did. Yeah, I know. I didn't have a heart to do that. Yeah, so they sent us everything they had, like the sketches. This is a very interesting bridge. I don't know where this is supposed to go, but I find this. I thought this was a very beautiful sketches. So. So this is we got all this thanks to the Architectural Archives of Philadelphia. So I think I don't know how much time I used, but
thank you, Professor. there are more people here than when we started. I think I'd like to give some context here. So Docomomo is actually an international organization that takes care of or intends to document and promote the conservation of the modernist buildings, which is pretty much what Kathmandu Institute is doing. So I'm not sure if also I should mention what modernist or modernist movement was. It was like a period in time, starting probably at the beginning of the 20th century, that spanned all over the 50s and 60s, with certain features, some characteristics that try to reject some traditional elements from before the 20th century, and the reason that I evaluate the effort, same as Docomomo, is to not only to promote conservation, but also to promote the awareness of this type of architecture. So actually, you probably already saw the Rui and Sergio and Docomomo from Macau already tried to do the same here in Macau, because many people actually live in the cities where many of these buildings actually take place, but they are not just aware of, they are just not aware of it. I actually was in Nepal, I was in Kathmandu, and I myself didn't notice this while I was there. So I appreciate your effort, and on that I would like to ask what will be the future of these buildings. Is there any chance, because you said that only after 100 years then they can be considered heritage. Is there, if they are not being protected at the moment, is there any are they under major risk at the moment?
Some of the buildings are under major risk, and some of the buildings, like I said, has already been demolished. The risk, the high risk buildings are probably the residences, because these are mostly single or two-story buildings as such, and now the land value is very high, so those buildings are very difficult to protect as such. The institutional buildings are more easier. Like I said, we've been able to save at least the Taragon Museum building, but they are most of them are in a very bad shape, especially the Serra building. So that was one of our objectives as well, to raise awareness and then promote these buildings and show them the significance, the value of the building, so it can be saved. And eventually, we are also trying to working with at least with the departments, the different government departments, to declare them as heritage as such as well. And it's the 100-year is not, hopefully that is not very inflexible as such, because the city hall was saved because we said that it was designed by the first architect, so they've been
there's some sensitivity to it.
Yeah. So and hopefully with this building and talking more about them, hopefully we'll raise some more awareness about it. But mostly the drawings are lost.
When I was there, I noticed that there are some NGOs and some countries willing to, especially after the earthquake, willing to rehab and recuperate the center of the city. Do you think it would be that easy to apply the same sponsorship to these kind of buildings?
Yeah, that's what we are hoping for. That's why we are trying to highlight that these were built by, like, it's like the U.S. Embassy or the Swiss government. So we are trying to engage with them as well. We're trying to the Austrian government as well. We're trying to engage with them and saying that oh, you started this, very good movement, so let's talk to continue with it. So, but again, they don't have good documentation as such, so they didn't have anything. It's like even the architects don't have them. So, um, well, let's see. We're trying,
Yes.
and hopefully we can raise enough awareness that at least it will stop them from demolition for now. That's
That's a good
the
point, starting point.
first step. Yeah, that's the first step. Stop them from demolition and change, because Sera building again, that the big building, and that is also this, when we went to do the documentation work, we could see that there was a lot of leakage, and they were talking about putting a blue roof over it, blue tin roof. So we've managed to discourage that, and we said like, okay, we're working on it. We can work together. So I think we've raised enough awareness to stop demolition for these institutions. Again, with the private houses, it's difficult.
Close control. Okay. Do you have any questions? There's a lot of architects, so for sure there's a lot of questions also.
The requirement for 100, the requirement of heritage requirement being 100 years old, is that regardless any evaluation of the building? So it's just enough to be 100 years, or is there together an evaluation of the building?
Any building structures, anything that's more than 100 years old, it says settlements, but that's the Department of Archaeology, which has that law. But there's so much of it that there's no inventory or documentation of what's 100 years old already.
I mentioned that because from the moment that you have an evaluation body, you may have some room for overruling the requirement of being 100 years old, and maybe other buildings, younger buildings, could be classified. But for that, it's important to have an evaluation of the building.
Yeah. That's why, that's exactly what I'm saying, is we don't even have a good inventory of what's 100 years old. So it's very difficult for us to like put on the list buildings that are less than 100 years old. So, so for now, the Department of Archaeology, who is the main agency that projects heritage buildings as such, monuments, they are not well equipped. Even the Department of Archaeology, they don't have that many architects. They're mostly focused on archaeology. And that organization, that ministry or department was also modeled after the ASI, Archaeological Survey of India, which was again modeled from the British version of it. So it's kind of like more focused on archaeology and less on the architecture as such. But like I said, we are working on it. They have a list of all the buildings or structures that are more than 100 years old, but every year there has to be some building on it, right? And that's not happening. Also, so to answer your question, we don't even have a full documentation of what's 100 years old and heritage, so it's very, very difficult for us to. So I think the best way to go about preserving this building is from another department or another ministry, maybe a ministry of. We have a ministry of buildings and building
Culture.
not the culture, but the planning and buildings. We're trying to get through the other departments, get them interested as well. The ones who do modern buildings or modern planning, because Department of Archaeology is very difficult at the point to change the laws.
Jarna, the inevitable comparison with India, where the arrival of modernism was very politically motivated, with especially the independence and the separation, and with Nero's kind of bringing modernism as a kind of a flagship for the new identity of a free India. And it seems like the way that the examples that you talked about, that in the case of Nepal, it came in a very different context, and maybe the earthquake kind of motivated political awareness in terms of new technology, but probably more in terms of planning than of the architecture. I would like that you talk a little bit, because it seems like that the incursion into modernism in the case of Nepal is a little bit undecisive.
Yes.
It's not straightforward, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
And the other reason behind it is also, like I mentioned in the at the beginning, is because our case was a little bit different, because for 104 years we were a closed country, and with autocratic rules, the citizens were not allowed to go to school, do much business. So, and then we were not colonized as such, but India obviously has a very strong influence on Nepal, and so there was we wanted to project. It's like you said, indecisive, and we wanted to project ourselves, but we didn't have enough resources. We didn't have the manpower, not like India. So that played into it as well. And then again, but then again, the change also went. The king I mentioned, King Mahendra, he was trying to project as a new modern Nepal. But then after him, King Birendra kind of went back to the traditional. So that's when the roofs, the sloped roofs started coming back, and then the decoration coming back. It's just like what we call a Nepali identity, kind of a crisis kind of thing came back. So these modern architecture, one of the reasons that wasn't continued or went forward, and kind of like broke after the new king, King Birendra, was also again to do with identity. We wanted to be, I guess we wanted to be modern, but we also wanted to be a Nepali as such. And again, comparing it to China, India, like we wanted to be distinct as well. But again, that was like, kind of trying to move in forward, but kind of going backwards. So yeah, you use the right word. I think indecisiveness was there. Like we wanted to project ourselves as a modern, but we wanted also to be. That was also maybe due to the fact that we also attracting tourism for the uniqueness, unspoiled. So we wanted the cultural identity to be preserved. So didn't want to go full on modernization as well. So that could be it as well. Yeah.
Even these examples that we've seen, some of them are not pure modernism.
No,
so they
no.
actually try to use or adapt to the local
The
circumstances.
scale was still the same, the materials were the same, and just the new introduction was a little bit of concrete, I guess. But craft people were the same, so you could see that a lot. Yeah.
So I see a little bit like here in Macau, that we, in this period where the modernism was introduced, there was lack of local architects. So there was a mix in the beginning. There was a mix of architects coming from abroad, and then other generation of local architects starting to work. So I feel a little bit, this is my question, I feel a little bit like in Nepal also you had this mix of foreigner architects, and then the local architects come in. I'm curious to understand if you can kind of identify, or maybe pinpoint is too much, where is the uniqueness of the modern movement in Nepal? If, because always there's this introduction of local elements. If it was on the construction methods, if it's in the planning, if it's how integrate the I mean, not the environment, the climate. If in any way you can identify what is unique in terms of the Nepal modern movement. I know it's hard.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any uniqueness on that as such, but for Nepal, the change was like I said, it showed at the first, one of the first slides, it's like there's not much difference between the private house and the palace. The functions, but with the modern houses, it was, the palace, now it was like distinct, like we were building residences with proper kitchen, plumbing, bathrooms, bedrooms, which was not distinct as such. And then we were also building like institutional buildings, schools, hospitals, and all that, which was distinct for distinct use. So planning was different. From the outside, it might not have changed, but started like planning. Otherwise, before that, it was like almost like the same plan. Like you go to the palaces or the residences, there's not much difference with how the rooms were planned. It was the structure. Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, but if that's nothing that stands out as such, and it was a very short period as well, and not that many buildings got built. But I think there was a introduction of bit of concrete and slabs, but that kind of like didn't even continue, and that is actually a question I had with the other engineers and architects. It's like, why don't we have precast structures now, like slabs? We are not continuing that, and that's kind of like almost feels like we are going backwards. They were experimenting much more than the architects and engineers are doing right now, because the codes are so strong now. You have to follow the earthquake security and everything else. So artistry, the aesthetics is kind of like the last thing that you do, almost like. Whereas these buildings at this time was more experimentative. They were more bolder than what the architecture coming out now, actually.
Okay, really, really interesting. Your presentation. Congratulations. I would like to somehow in the pathway that Sergio was talking, just to highlight and ask you something. I was first of all, I was impressed because I could see in the examples that you shown influences from other worldwide architects. I saw traces of Alvarado, Sterling. I saw José Luis Sert and some more the brutalists. All these kind of things, which is rather interesting on how the pathway made them arrive. The influence made them arrive to Nepal, which is amazing. I didn't quite understand. So that's my question. Is you mentioned that there is a kind of a duplicity. On one side, local architects that were the first generation of the Nepalese architects, and on the other side, the international ones that came to Nepal due to UNESCO, whatever, different movement. With regard to the Nepalese architects, can you identify or can you clarify what is their pathway? Did they learn in India? Did they learn in Europe? Where was the knowledge acquired for the first generation of the Nepalese architects?
India.
India.
So it was, at the beginning it was India, then the second generation started going a lot of like Russia and Eastern Europe as well. So, but this first generation of architects and engineers were mostly from India. And Sanganath Rimal, he mentioned that it was through started with schooling, but then again it was, he was whoever the foreigners coming in, he used to ask them to bring him books. Whenever he traveled, he got a lot of books. So that was like all the architects that you mentioned, that the influence was because they were doing a lot of learning after it, and it was through books. And sometimes he said it was through movies as well, but mostly like books and then it was mostly like European and American architects, of course. So that definitely influenced the architecture as well as the technology for the first generation of architects. And then
Thank
the
you.
second generation, Russia and other architects started coming in.
Thank you.
More?
I'm not an architect, I'm a photographer. And in my opinion, what is happening all over the world is that we keep digging, looking for information that a lot of time is not available. I think maybe if we start thinking not only about the past, but about the future, while systematizing the information, not only taking pictures, getting information, but start preparing the future generations for not facing the same kind of problems that you and everybody all over the world is facing.
Yeah, so that's one of the next projects one of the projects that we are doing as well is to put the work already done by others, like, so that you don't have to repeat the same thing again. So we are trying to start an archive as well of all the works, because we had such difficult time just getting the information, and we don't know where the information was. So now that we have the information, we're trying to like build a digital archive so anyone can put their work there. Will not hold the the license, or the authority will be with whoever has the collection, but will just be a point of like a point where you can get the information. So that's
Platform.
yeah. So it's going to be a digital platform. That's something we're working on as well.
All right. So I think that's it. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Professor. And thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you.